Okay, I think we're live. Welcome to Cartoon Brew's first live stream. It's March 29th, and I am in Los Angeles. And let's introduce our co-host, who is Cole Delaney in Dublin. Cole, are you there?
I hope I'm here.
There we
We'll find
go.
out in a minute if people can hear me or not. Yes, hello. Welcome to the live stream on the 29th of March, 2024. The weather is fine. Yeah, I'm here in Dublin, and thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to talk basically, and we can see what we're going to talk about. Um, Amit, I wanted to ask you a question first before we get going, which is, tell me why we're doing a live stream.
Well, first, before we get to that,
Yeah.
let's ask a
Oh yeah, go
question.
on.
Can everybody hear this? Fine.
Mm,
Because I'm still trying to figure out the tech here. This is far more complicated than I had expected it was going to be. Can everybody hear me and Cole fine? I know we
yeah,
have some viewers right now. If anybody can add a comment there to the chat.
you might be a bit delayed in that. So,
Yeah, well, we'll wait to see if anybody can hear this. Looking and sounding good. Okay, thanks,
thanks,
Ryan.
Ryan.
Ryan is one of our contributors. So yeah, thanks for joining. Yeah, Michael Norco. Yep, we can hear you. Great. Okay, excellent. So
Thanks,
we're
guys.
we're both live. Very good. Uh, so Cole, tell me, ask me the question again. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Why are we doing the live stream? Amit, tell me.
So I don't know. We're trying we're trying something new out. When I write for the site,
Mm,
every thought is very carefully controlled, right? Like you think about what
yeah.
you're going to say and you put the words that you want to say. And over the years, we've tried to kind of do more multimedia type of work. We've done podcasts. We do the
Mm,
in between series, which you host. But a
yeah.
lot of that stuff seems the same to me as writing for the site. It's controlled. It's edited, right? You
Mm,
see, it's very carefully crafted content, and you often can't say what you actually want to say when you're live. You can say things differently, right? You
mm,
can you can
mm,
add context to a story. If I'm talking about, like, let's say a Disney story, we can talk for a few minutes then about DreamWorks. Whereas in a printed piece, you can't do that. You have to be clear, concise, give the facts, and people want to leave. In a conversation, I think there's more freedom. You don't know what's going to happen. You
mhm,
might say things that are, you know, are revealing in their information, but that you normally wouldn't be able to do in a written context. That's kind of
mm.
the idea for it. So it's something new. It's something different. It's a little challenging. Now you've done, uh, for people that don't know you, we should probably introduce yourself. You do the in between series for Cartoon Brew, but you also have an excellent series called Animator's Breakfast on YouTube. And
Mm.
can you talk a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, I think for me to just start that story briefly, and we're not going to do this every time, obviously. I'm not going to always have a long story about a long winding path as to how I got here, but I was lucky enough to apply for a writing position with Cartoon Brew, and immediately you were like, maybe not writing, but let's let's. But you have a video series called Animators Breakfast, where I interview people in the animation industry about what inspires them. So it's a video based podcast now. Originally, it was audio based, and through that, then we connected, and you said, okay, well, we have this other piece called In Between, the In Between Animation Festival, where we're going to also be talking to industry professionals about movies that they've just made. Um, and I find that very rewarding, to be honest. You know, if we talk about why a live stream is good, is I'm adding context to it right now. I find it rewarding to talk to people about what interests them, what inspires them, and try to pull the authentic self of someone out rather than kind of hidden behind PR, you know, and that's really what I want to achieve with the work. that I do, and that's Animators Breakfast is my podcast on my YouTube channel, which is called Animation.
Excellent. We're
Thanks.
gonna have to. I don't know if you can. I don't even know if you can do links on a live stream. I don't know how that works. I don't think
You
you
know
can
what?
add a link.
I'm logged into my account on YouTube, so I'll just put a little hello, and then everyone can see my little account there. So yeah, so I'll pop up in the chat as animation, basically.
So I think what you said about authenticity is
Mm,
absolutely true. That's what we're trying to get at. I think with this as well. Cartoon Brew, we just celebrated 20 years, and our first 10 years we
mm,
started as a blog, and it was much more, I would say, kind of rebellious. There was no, you know, there wasn't a clear like we have to deliver news every day, right? But over time,
yeah.
we grew into a media site, and we kind of lost a lot of that spirit, I would say, of blogging. I think we still have a personality to the site, but we're definitely like very much focused on delivering news to people. We cover every
Mm,
story. We don't cover necessarily like what we want to cover every day, but we cover what people need to know in the industry. And I think the live stream
mm,
is a way to kind of get back a little bit more to our earlier roots, but also to connect with readers. If people have questions, um, we want to have a discussion with readers. We don't just want to
mm,
be talking here, but as this grows over time, people will, more people will join, and people can
mhm.
ask whatever questions they have. They can discuss our approaches to how we covered a certain story. There can be more of a back and forth, and I really look forward to kind of seeing how this will evolve. For right now, we're trying to do this every Friday at 11
Yeah.
a.m. and that's the schedule. I don't know. I'm not good at keeping schedules, so I will see how long we'll I'll see how long we're going to keep that up, but certainly the
Yeah.
goal is 11 a.m. Every Friday,
Yeah,
and we're
which we've
starting it.
already missed.
I know we've
Yeah.
already missed our first our first date, but whatever.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
learning, so yeah. And what we want to do is talk about the big stories that are happening in the industry. We
Mm,
also want to have guests. I mean, one of the things with, and I'm going to move on, but this is the final thought on why we're doing this is I want to have guests, but I don't want to have guests necessarily like in between where it's like somebody's there to promote something. But we just want to have
yes.
people
Yeah.
that we know and people that we just
Yeah.
want to talk to who are interesting, who are doing interesting work, who maybe necessarily don't have a big project coming out, but they are interesting people, and we just want to speak to them
Mm,
casually about what's going on in the business. So it's everything about this is trying to move towards something that's a little bit more casual, a little bit more authentic,
yeah.
and
Do you
we'll
think,
see
I
where it
mean,
goes.
a question then, do you think it's like because Cartoon Brew then, because it kind of is this behemoth of news in the industry, that there's this kind of load then on your shoulders? You're approached a lot by people for promotional content, right? So is it a thing then that the live stream becomes, like you're saying, comes back to the roots of let's just talk to people in the industry about what they're doing rather than engaging across a business sense? Does that make sense? That
Yeah,
question?
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
again, we're so different from other sites. Like I'll say, like
Mm,
we get 20, 30 new submissions a day, but we only publish 3 to 4 stories, right? Because no one wants to read 20
yeah.
or 30 different articles. So we already have a very clear kind of editorial voice,
Mm,
whereas some of our competitors, if you send a press release to them, it will go on their site, right? That's their and
yeah.
so they
Right.
publish
Yeah.
30 pieces a day. No one is reading those 30 pieces. It's kind of just going out into a void, right? We don't do that.
Mm,
That's why Cartoon Brew is the most read animation website, is because we only publish a handful of stories every day. So I'm not trying to put down the fact that we have a news site that is perfectly doing
crucial.
well,
Yeah.
and it serves
Mm,
its purpose. But this is hopefully a complementary addition to the site that will
mm,
allow us to do things that we have not been able to do through the printed word.
perfect.
Yeah. So I mean, if we want to kind of talk a little bit about stories today, the
Yeah.
general theme of what's happening in the industry right now is turmoil, right? Things are not going great.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of stories. I didn't write them, but there's a couple of stories that I noticed this morning that kind of tell you everything you need to know about what's happening in animation right now.
Mm.
Let me pull up.
Let's hit it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
let's
see
go
what you
to it.
got.
So how about this? Is this showing up?
Turmoil is a great word for
Well,
how you feel trying to control this. Yeah.
let me pull up this. I honestly I did not. No one ever told me that it was gonna be this hard, like doing a live stream. There is so much to
Mm.
learn, and I'm kind of fiddling
Yeah, it's a
around with
different
it.
language
So
nearly.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is very complex. So
Well, I can see it. It's up there anyway. So I'll read the title for you. So, a new survey shows Japan's animation workers are overworked, underpaid, and regularly face harassment. Mm,
that's a big
grim.
surprise.
Yeah.
I mean, we've covered this story multiple times over the years. I think
Yeah.
what's new here is that these are the results of a study. And so there's actual hard data to support what was previously anecdotal information about how
Mm,
challenging it is for animation workers in Japan. Now we have some
mm,
actual data, and it is a very limited survey. I mean, I think it's the 300 people or something that they surveyed, but
yeah.
nevertheless,
323.
it's information that is new, and it helps support the narrative that the Japanese animation industry is overworking and underpaying
Mm.
their workers. I mean, now we can go through the story a little bit here. Um,
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise. Like it is a known thing. No, I don't think anyone's surprised to find out about that. But I know what you mean in terms of a study. Like it's actually finally written down as a quantifiable thing.
so, like you said, they talked to 323 different workers, or at least
Mm.
323 different people filled out the survey. And the statistics are they're so kind of out of bounds for what is normal. But I
Yeah.
think this is normal in Japan, and that's what's scary. The average number of working hours per month for an anime industry worker is 219 hours. Now, to put that
Mm.
into perspective, an 8-hour workday, 40-hour week, it's about 160 hours. So you're already looking at nearly that's what, it's a 12-hour workday or something, if it's
Yeah, it's kind of
219,
outrageous. I'm
something
I'm
like that.
terrible at math, so
Yeah.
this is probably the worst time.
It's bad.
Yeah.
I mean, 336 though, we know if it's 160 hours for a 40-hour work week, we know 320 would be
Uh,
um, a 16-hour workday, and the maximum reported is 336. So there's somebody who filled out that survey who was working 16-hour days,
yeah,
and
Jesus.
that's just ridiculous. I mean, you could do it
In
maybe
in
in a
America,
day, right?
then, like, is it pretty strict to 8-hour working days? Is it in terms of the industry out there? I'd be curious to know.
It really depends. I mean,
Yeah.
if you have a day rate on a commercial, right? Like,
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
you're
You're
sometimes
not going
working
over.
longer
Yeah,
than that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean,
Mm.
it doesn't. There's no set rule. I think if you're in the union, if we have some viewers right now who can speak to that, that would be great. But you
Yeah,
know, if you're on
we can.
salary, you're often working as long as it takes to get the job done. So
Mm. I just think it's a thing. Like, obviously, it's a big thing in Japan. Like, they're overworked, and I think the next big thing is the underpay. Right, that's a huge thing as well. Because at least in kind of Western industries, there's unions that fight for a level of pay, to kind of pull it up. That even though you might be working long hours, there's still a kind of a fair restitution of your services, which doesn't really seem to exist in the anime industry at all. Oh, here we go. Thanks, Chad Townsend. Hours are capped at 40 per week, 40 hours per week for pay. So there you go.
yeah, it doesn't mean you're not working more than 40 hours though, right? Like you're capped at 40 hours a week, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
but like, so cool. I mean, you work in the film industry yourself, right?
I do. Yeah, yeah.
And you work more on you work on live action productions.
Uh,
But
yeah.
what about you? I mean,
Well, Ireland is very tightly controlled by unions, like really severely. So if you're on set or in the production office, we are expected to work 10-hour days, right, when you're on a contract. So that's 50 hours a week. But once if the camera rolls over 1 or 2 minutes, you're into overtime immediately, and they will, like, the crew will shut it down if it's not agreed. They'll just pack up and go home. There's a grace period, of course, if you're on the final take of the day, but it's very, very tightly controlled here, for good reason, because companies will always try to take advantage of just grace periods of people's goodwill to work a little bit extra, right?
are you part of a union yourself?
I should say yes. Technically, yes, I am, because I work as part of the industry. You're kind of automatically part of a union. They're not really unions now; they're guilds here in Ireland, but um, they have effectively the same control.
So, I mean, we can move on to the next part of this is the hourly rates,
Yeah.
which I'm still struggling
Yes.
to even understand these rates. I'm not. I mean, I kind of want to double check these because it doesn't even sound right to me. How are you working for $4 a week, and the production of anime is not easy. It's not
Mm,
it's a challenging type of work to do.
yeah.
It
Yeah.
requires often a lot of pencil mileage, and so the fact that they're making $4 to $7 an hour, if that's what their rate works out to, that doesn't make it doesn't even make logical sense. Um,
Mm.
and
I'm
so
going to click into this study here and have a look. Yeah. While you're talking away there, Mead, and
yeah.
see. I'm sure it's totally accurate in what Jamie's saying here, but it seems like an insanely low. Like I just feel so. My heart goes out to these workers so much. Mm,
So then the passing of industry knowledge in the workplace decreases after the age of 30. And what that kind of is telling you is that they're burning out they're burning out young people, right, to get what they
yeah.
need, but they're not really interested in creating a strong industry. They're not interested in the continuation of knowledge. They're just, it's labor that they're looking for, and
Mm, mm,
that's a reality I think of a lot of the animation industry is they're trying to get the job done, but they're not really thinking
yeah.
about the longevity of the the infrastructure of the industry. So
What happens to these people when they burn out? Then do they just return to
yeah, I mean,
regular
who
Joe
knows?
Schmo jobs? Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? It's not in the report. Yeah. What have you worked on next?
It's
Um.
they're only surveying people who are working in the business, not people who have left the business. So that would be interesting to find out.
Yeah. Especially if something so like I know this is a thing of the VFX industry as well. Like the rate of burnout is so high that to achieve what's the term? When you've worked somewhere for a long time, uh, I can't remember the term. It's flown out of my head. It's a very simple term. Veteran status or something. You're like working years is very short compared to like other industries. It could be a couple of years, 5 or 6 years compared to something else to be considered a veteran of VFX, or seems here like it's similar to be a veteran of the anime industry, which is wild because when I look at things like the Boy and the Heron is a great example because they had a lot of older veterans of the anime industry working that. People like Shinya Ohira and these kind of very famous animators of the time. And they seem to be going for years upon years upon years. So I wonder, do they work to a different structure, or are they just so used to it? I'm asking these questions that you've no answers to.
No,
But
but they're
it's
interesting
a
to think
it's a
about. Yeah.
thought. Yeah.
One thing here is seniority played little part in the number of hours average employees worked, with 69% of
Wow.
people in their 50s reporting that they're still averaging more than 8 hours per day, and 21% saying they were working more than 10 hours per day. So
Yeah.
if you're lucky enough to make it to seniority there, um, you're still, you know, got a long
Not
road
much
ahead of
to
you.
it there. You really want to love what you do, right? See no other path.
So
God.
anyway, I mean, this whole story, we don't have to go through it, but it kind of
Yeah.
is a very revealing study, and I encourage everybody to look deeper into this, right? Because there's
Mm.
always a headline that's catchy, right? This is
Yes,
this is
yeah.
bad, but a lot of times people don't really dig into stories the way they should, and understanding what's going on is very important. I think a lot of people in the animation industry, they have very kind of localized views of how my
Mm.
industry is doing in my city, but
Yeah.
animation is outside. 99% of the animation industry is outside of Los Angeles, right? And everyone has
Mm.
different experiences, and it's important to understand. The more we understand about how the global animation industry functions, the more we can say, this is what we need to do to improve our local situation as well, right?
Yeah, and anime is such a global powerhouse right now of specifically hand drawn animation. A lot of people gravitate toward anime as like being a paragon of hand drawn animation. So it's kind of good to finally have statistics behind this, all the stories that we hear about.
Mm-hmm. So now, moving on to
Yeah.
um, another story.
Is there?
If I
Yeah.
can, if I can figure out how to work this, there we go.
is there
So this
is there
is
going to be? Oh yeah. Is this, which one are you on here? You tell
we
me.
are looking at Paramount dropping 10 kids
Okay.
titles, right? So this is the other big story that's breaking today. Again, not a very fun story to be writing, but I did not write it, so I Jamie wrote this one, but it's unfortunate. Again, it's Paramount has unceremoniously and without warning dropped 10 kids titles from its current catalog, including several animated shows from popular animated franchises such as
Mm.
Blue's Clues and Rugrats. Um,
So what's the reasoning behind something like this? What's the purpose? Because I don't understand uh, similar events happening, famously in HBO Max or Max, whatever it's called now, where they are dropping so much of the Warner Brothers content off, right? So what's the purposes? Is it tax purposes, or they just?
yeah, I mean, I'm assuming even if the network made it, they still have to license it from themselves, right? And that there's all
Uh,
kinds of costs involved with that. There's residuals to the voice actors and to certain
yeah,
people in the production, but also there's a cost to just keeping anything on a streaming platform, right? The data
absolutely.
cost and the
Yeah.
delivery cost of that. I
Mm.
don't think anyone like truly understands like what is happening. What is the purpose for taking things off and on, like constantly saying here's a show that you have now, and then 3 months later it's gone.
Mm.
It's a bizarre. The promise of streaming was that everything would be available to you at all the time, and you wouldn't have to you know pay to own anything because it would all be there. And it turned out to be
Yes.
a big lie, right? Like this is there's no
Yeah.
such thing. Streamers just remove things randomly, and
Mm.
but also if you think about it, like the idea that everything should be available at all
Mm.
times is also a relatively new concept. Like
Mm.
we've both worked on projects, and if you worked on something, nothing I worked on 20 years ago is
Mm.
available online today, right? There's no
Mm.
expectation that old content would always be available. I think what's unique about this, though, is that these are new shows. These are shows that they
Yes.
just made, right?
Mm.
And they
Mhm.
barely had any time to build an audience. And before people have even had a chance to, grow fond of them, they're like, oh, they're gone now. And so, what is the purpose? I don't know. I'd
Yeah.
love to hear if anybody else has thoughts on this. If you worked on any of these shows, or if you are a fan of them, uh, I'd
Mm.
love to hear
Mm.
what you think.
Yeah, we'll definitely have a look at those comments as we go through this, and we'll give you a bit of time because we know there's a delay between us saying it and you guys getting the messages through. So we'll wait a little bit toward the end. But this is something that's popped up in my feed a few times now. Is this, the how, and it says it in the article here, even as I'm reading it, like the preschool streamer Noggin, right? They just laid off all that staff. I mean, it's hard to know the inner workings of what a business plan is, and something that you're saying there. I don't mind titles being taken off streaming services like Netflix. I think, in my experience, they do it well where they announce the end date of something. Right? They're saying that it's coming off. Something like that is far more forgivable than something they just made and then they've clicked the big delete button. And now more and more, because everyone's leaning towards streaming, it's much harder to get physical media of shows, new ones that you really enjoy, and you're like, God, I'd love that. I'd love to keep a copy of that. And the only way you can watch it is on something like Paramount Plus, and then they just one day delete it off. It's I truly don't understand the business reasoning behind it. It just seems disrespectful to the consumer.
And to the creators who made the shows, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
why are you
Sorry,
even spending?
creators. Absolutely.
No,
Yeah,
I mean, why are you spending all this time working on something if it's just going to disappear like into some
yeah.
black hole that no one's ever going to see again? Like,
Mm,
why invest that time into it?
yeah. I don't know if you want to talk about this now, but that's like a big part of that recently was the what was it, Coyote versus Acme. That's just blipped into the void.
Yeah.
You saw it, didn't you?
Yeah, I did see it. Yeah, I mean that hasn't even that's not even coming out at this point, right?
Yeah.
We don't know. I mean we don't know. I think there's a lot of conjecture about what's coming out.
Mm,
It's not but that may never even see the light of day. At least these shows, they had a little run before they were taken off. But that's a completely different scenario where they're just like we're making stuff and then we're not we're just not
mm,
showing it, which again I don't understand the the business model there.
yeah.
But yeah, so
Okay.
so this
So
is
they
this
do
is
have a quote
another
here. Sorry,
problem.
as I'm reading through it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Sorry. I mean, they do have a quote. I think it's only fair to read it out for a second. I don't want to stay here forever if you want to move
is this
on, but
is this the quote that you were going to read?
in connection with our
Yeah,
continued review is that, yeah. Do you want to read it, or
you can
I'll
go
just
ahead.
continue? Actually, I'm going to say it. Yeah. In connection with our continued review of our international content strategy, whatever that means, during the first quarter of 2024, we made a strategic decision to focus on content with mass global appeal. I don't know how you can predict that. As part of this, we are rationalizing original content on Paramount Plus, especially internationally, and improving the efficiency of our linear network programming. As a result, we have reviewed our expansive global content portfolio and are removing select content from our platforms. So that just sounds like money, doesn't it? Just money
That's just
nonsense. Yeah,
corporate
just big
speak.
fancy words. Yeah, corporate speak. Oh, just don't get me started on corporate speak. Um, it just seems so impenetrable, right? Because you're just saying the same thing four sentences in a row there, and how I guess you've got on the other end of a streamer, you've got all the data and statistics of viewing habits. But I think it's very dangerous to look at something so short term because you're chasing spikes and dips. Whereas if you kind of zoom out on something on long term, you can see actual trends occurring. And if you're not giving something enough time to create a trend, how can you ever predict how it's going to go? Unless it immediately bombs. But we've seen things do that and then find their audience and go straight back up again.
Yeah, I think less than something bombing is something starts out slow and it takes time to build an audience, right? But we just don't.
Yeah.
There's no patience anymore for that. If it's in the first 30 days. That used to be Netflix's metric. I think they've updated it a
Yeah.
little bit, but if it doesn't
Mm.
do well in the first 30 days, like and that's really a completely contrary to how audiences have worked in the past, right?
Mm.
Audiences rarely, it's all like assuming that the audience knows something is coming out, and then they just decided to not view it.
Yeah.
But there's so much content out there that you're not necessarily waiting for a new show, right? You have a
Yeah.
load of things to watch, and you might get to it later, and it takes time to build word of mouth, and yeah, it's a bizarre.
It it
Uh,
does seem like they're applying a box office strategy to a
mhm.
streaming system, which is not like they're two very different systems. You know, imagine you could go to a cinema and it was showing movies from 10 years ago and you could literally walk in and select what you want. Like, you can't apply the same idea. If you want to apply box office strategy, put it in the box office, right? Um, Rather than guessing if a TV show will do well.
Right. And the box office strategy is supported by usually an equal spend on the marketing, right? So
On
they're
marketing.
spending,
Yeah.
if a film costs 100 million, they're spending 100 million dollars to promote it. They're spending nothing to promote
Mm.
most of these new shows. So
Yeah.
it's hard to you know, there was a show that Paramount Plus dropped. I don't know which one's worse. It's taking the stuff off, or they just dropped a show last week, Arc, which is based on role playing game. I'm not sure it's a
Really?
role playing, but
Oh
it's a video
man.
game. They
Yeah.
dropped a series last week, or maybe it was this week, on Paramount Plus without telling anyone. Right? They just suddenly
Oh, they,
appeared.
as in they dropped, as in it appeared
They
on the
right,
platform.
right.
Yeah.
It appeared on the
Yeah.
platform, and they didn't even promote it. And so, I don't know what the intent
Yeah. It
there
didn't make
is
sense to me.
to work on something. Have people work, commission something. There's got to be
Uh,
something going on with that, because that was quite bizarre what they did there.
yeah.
Had a lot of celebrity talent behind it, but
But it doesn't seem to be like limited to one or two, to one streamer's thing. It seems to be happening on multiple platforms, which is kind of worrying,
yeah,
really. That all these companies are starting to trend toward the same things, right? They're starting to go toward these same ideas, and maybe we're just not seeing something. Maybe it is the right way to do it, but for me as a consumer, I don't particularly feel um, loyal to people who like that. You know?
yeah, yeah. So, I don't know if we have more to say about this topic, or if we should move on
No.
to
Yeah, yeah, you can move on.
another sad topic.
Yeah. Do you have, please put something positive in here. Tell me something. It's the
Uh,
20-year anniversary. Before we move on, I mean, tell me 20 years of Cartoon Brew. Let's do
yeah,
2 minutes of happiness here. Yeah.
yeah,
What
okay.
does that mean to you?
Well, I mean,
I've only been here 2 years, so
yeah, yeah,
it
you're
means a lot.
10% of it.
10% of your journey.
Um, yeah, I never expected it to,
Mm,
survive as long as it has. I didn't expect this to, you know, be the most widely read. The whole thing started as a blog, and it was, the intent was never
mm,
to become like the major news site for the animation industry, right? It was a place
mm,
where I could share my thoughts, and my partner at the time, Jerry Beck, we both had websites. They were kind of proto blogs, right? This was even
mm,
before
mm.
blogs. We had blogs, and then we were like, 2004, everyone was doing a blog. So we were like, let's put it together and make a blog. And we did.
Uh,
And it was just a place where we just randomly shared ideas, and
mm,
somehow that became very widely read. I think largely it was because there, at that time, there were not a lot of people talking about animation online who had
mm,
actually worked in the business. Both Jerry and I had worked in the animation industry, and we were active doing other things as well. We were writing books and doing all sorts of different projects. So it wasn't really like a job for us. It was something fun that we did. We didn't make any money from it, and
mm,
it was just a hobby. And somehow that hobby just blew up and became very popular.
mm,
And I think it was about, maybe, when Jerry left, that was when we kind of, I had to figure out, how do I restructure this and kind of take it in a different direction, because you can't just do the same thing,
yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
So that's when we kind of became more of a media site, and um, we continued to remain, popular for that, right? So we
Mm,
kind of
mm,
established ourselves as this leading media site. Now, as we come up on 20 years, it's kind of like, now maybe it's time for, this is partly why we're starting the live stream. It's partly why we're launching this print edition, which I can't say much about what's going to be in that print edition, but it's going to be really
mm.
interesting what's going to be in there, and we're going to be publishing twice a year. And it seems kind of backwards to go to print, but I
Yeah.
think
I was
But
about to say, yeah,
in this media landscape, I mean, all the web publications are closing down, and it's like everyone's getting laid off in the media industry too. So why not? I like print, and we're not
yeah,
even selling it. We're just doing a couple issues, and they're going to be handed out. They're not even. It's not something that you can buy. So it's not like
yeah,
there's any big. We're not trying to make money off of it or turn it into a business. It's just something different to do. And again, once people see what the print edition is, I think they'll understand why it had to be a print edition. It's not
mm.
really clear right now why we're doing it, but it's going to be really
Do you know
special.
yeah, I'm really looking forward to it because the very first, I don't think you know this, but the very first thing I ever, in terms of animation journalism, I was there's this magazine called Marimo magazine. It only ever had uh, two issues released, but it's print, and I
I know,
contributed
yeah, I
articles
know
about
that,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, I have them here, and they're really beautiful keepsakes to have. It's stunning art, and it's just nice to have. It's not a book, but it's something else. Like it's quite in between, and it's this kind of the texture and everything is very tactile. It's really beautiful to have. I think that's all.
No, print is great. It's dead,
Yeah,
but it's a great it's a fun medium to work in. I still
yeah.
love
See, I
print.
have them here.
Yeah, there
You
you
know,
go. Which one? Let me
two,
see.
two little prints. I
Yeah,
boated them.
nice.
And that's it's a lovely thing to have because you can just flick right through it. You can land on my articles that I wrote, and
You wrote in those, really?
I wrote. Yeah, well, I can't put a video into a
Yeah, yeah. But no,
print.
but no, I thought you
Like,
said you bought them, but you actually contributed to them. I didn't
I
realize that.
contributed. Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Here's my article here. Look, this I'll put it where you can see my head. Here we go. See, there's my
Yeah.
article there with some
What is
lovely
that
art
about?
and stuff. I think it's about Irish mothers in animation. But I did it as well for the second one. I contributed something as well, which is I talked about the history of Robertson's Phantasmagoria.
Mm.
Um, so there it is, the art and stuff. So I wrote an article on that, and about a brief history of the macabre in animation. So I don't know if they're still out there in print, but it goes to say to your point that like print is a really beautiful thing to have. I treasure these. I really do. So I'm so looking forward to see what you do with the Cartoon Brew stuff print.
Yeah, I would show my stuff. I don't I
Don't
don't
bother.
no, I don't have anything that I've done um around me, right? They're all in
Oh,
storage. I
okay.
don't keep any of my books or magazines um uh
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
in
Thanks.
front of me.
Yeah, I know.
No,
I like mine in a
I
wall so I can be reminded of how great I am.
yeah, yeah, no,
Just
I really it's really frustrating because I often need to look things up that I've written, and I have this
oh yeah.
weird kind of mental block where I can't keep anything that I've done in my vicinity. So and it's weird because I wish like I don't have copies of any of my books. They're all in storage. So
Wow.
um,
Yeah.
anyway,
I have copies of one of your book. Anyways, yeah. Let's go on. Yeah.
last thing
Back
we
to
want to
sad
talk
news.
about today. Yeah, back to the
Yeah.
sad stuff. But I
Yeah.
appreciate that. That was a good interlude to like
Thank you.
some semblance of positivity.
Yeah. The hope is news sites gone on for 20 years. Now, DreamWorks Animation cut, what is it? Significant cut staff in
To
coming months.
significantly cut staff. Yeah.
Yeah. Tuesday. Sorry, I can't read. Um, yeah. Strange, isn't it?
Yeah, so this is actually like maybe the biggest story that is happening in animation right now, and it's very weird to me that no one is discussing the story, right? I mean because this is
Mm.
we're basically like this is we're upturning, is that the word? Overturning, upending the animation
Upending.
industry, right?
Upending.
There you go. We're
Yeah.
upending
Yeah.
the animation industry. Thi-
Overturning.
yeah,
Yeah.
whatever. But this actually goes back to October, right? This is the big story, like the biggest
Mm.
story that's happened in animation in a very long time is this one, where DreamWorks announced that they were shifting away from in-house production. I mean, this is why they're laying people off, right? Because they're
Yeah.
no longer going to
Yeah.
make films. in the U.S. Having said that, they're
Mm,
going to get, they're not going to like that if I say it that way, because they absolutely insist that they are doing pre-production and post in the U.S. None of their films will be made entirely overseas, but animation production, the production for many of their films is shifting away from the United States. And that,
mm,
when we announced this in October, that left just two US studios who were doing animated features entirely in the United States from front to end. And that was Disney and Pixar, right?
mm.
Disney and Pixar were the only two studios. And uh, then in last month, Disney announced that Moana 2 was going to be their next feature. And now
Mhm.
that film's being done in Vancouver. Again, this is
Yeah.
uh, there is a lot of stuff being done in LA, but the production for their films used to be done entirely in Burbank, and now
Mm,
they're shifting. So now that leaves us with Pixar as the only animation studio in the United States that is entirely making films from front to end in the U.S. This is a huge shift. I mean, this is uh, when the 2D renaissance kind of ended in the 90s, and we had this whole era starting around, I would say it really kind of started around A Bug's Life and Ants, when
mm.
DreamWorks and Disney started saying we're going to make these high-end competing features in the US, CG features. And then we
Yeah.
entered the CG era where um, uh, high quality feature quality CG animation was made in the United States. You had
Mhm.
Blue Sky, and you had Sony before they went to Vancouver. You had Sony making Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs and Surf's Up in the US. You had Disney, you had Pixar, you had DreamWorks, you had PDI. And that this was an era that lasted from, I would say, the late 90s until the last couple of years. History is not like there's no end date to certain things, but we're
Yeah.
definitely entering a new era right now where America is no longer like the place where high end CG animation needs to be done. And a big reason for that is, in the last few years, we had like Sony Picture Imageworks, with Spider Verse. They came
Yeah.
out with this amazing animated film. The first one in 2018, they came out with this amazing film that was animated in Vancouver, and it kind of showed
Mm,
you can be cutting edge. You don't need to be in the U.S. anymore. It proved that the model that they'd been using for the past decade worked really well and could result in really original CG animation. So
mhm, mhm.
we've entered this new era where all the studios are pushing production out of the United States, and Disney and DreamWorks doing it simultaneously is
Mm,
the biggest story. It's going to have the biggest impact on the animation industry over the next coming years.
mm,
And
mm.
and I feel like just no one is interested in discussing that. Certainly, the people who are experiencing it know what's going on. They can see
Yeah.
what's going on. But that's kind of my big, this is the thing that we're keeping an eye on is this shift that we don't when 2D animation in the 90s was replaced by CG, you kind of knew what was coming. You kind
Mhm.
of knew, okay, well, now we're going to do high end CG in the US. Right now, we don't really know what's coming.
Yeah.
We don't know what this new phase is going to be. You could say, oh, it's all moving to Canada, but it's not, because DreamWorks made Orion in the Dark, their latest feature, in India, at Mikros in India.
Mm,
95% of the film was done in India. So, Canada could be next. I mean, I think Canada is going to be in for a world of suffering over the next decade, because their whole industry is going to, uh, go through a very difficult time once they realize, oh,
mm.
we don't even need Canada. We can do CG in other parts of the world as well.
Yeah. I think it's more countries that come online that have um, lower costs of making things, but also the ability to communicate. I think in English is critical, obviously, for these kind of Western films. Um, that's where Ireland really did well out of something like this, right? We did so well out of because a lot of the studios here were set up as service studios. You've got Brown Bag that took a lot of Disney Junior work, or Ninth Story Media. There's Boulder Media as well that took on quite a bit of work because they were just looking for work. And obviously, you've got outliers like Cartoon Saloon that um, made their own stuff through the European system, really, and it it did very well, and they've become a kind of a synonymous name here. But most of the reason Ireland is able to do so well is because of our tax initiatives. Um, the tax here is you instantly get almost 30% of your production back. It's just back, right? And it happens very quickly. Whereas, as far as I understand, talking to people in the industry here, like Canada, there's also tax initiatives, but it takes far longer to come back through, right? It takes quite a bit longer. I think it's something like 48 months instead of in Ireland, it could be 6 months or something. So it's like this big delay of money shifting around, and all these studios want cash flow, right? They want the cash flowing around. Um, I think it is sad because, everyone can look to spaces in LA as a thriving haven of Western storytelling uh, for feature animation, anyways. But it's not like service studios have always existed, but it's always usually been for TV. Like it's not big studio features. And I'm curious why Pixar haven't looked at that as well, if they are or not. It could be to do with their proprietary software, RenderMan or whatever it's called. But you know, everything's shifting and it's all going global. Ever since the pandemic, everything's just far easier to communicate across online. More people are speaking English, so I think that's a big thing as well. There's
There's a
studios
whole, I
out
mean, there's
in,
a whole
yeah,
variety of forces, right? I mean, the pandemic,
yeah,
made remote working. There was so much concern. I remember when the pandemic first started about
uh,
security, especially on some of the big VFX films, like
mhm,
security on how are people going to be able to work from home on these, big blockbuster films. But they figured it out, and that kind of
yes,
was a big, uh, uh, kind of sticking point that fell away with the pandemic. So that,
mm,
like you say, the accessibility of technology, and like in a lot of countries, the internet service, right? I mean, India, you really can't still work from home. You need to go to a tech park and work
mm,
in a place that has consistent, internet service
yeah,
and generators and all that sort of thing. But uh, I mean, all these hurdles that existed are kind of falling away one by one.
mm,
And we have a comment here from Ernesto Molina. He says Quebec studios are more likely to survive this era because of all the government benefits they get by producing in house. Yeah, so that's certainly true. But I mean, Canada. Again, I don't think the Canadian industry is in any trouble like tomorrow. I don't think that
mhm,
these governments still see a value in giving these tax breaks to the studios. But I think 5 years from now, this going to be a very different picture. The
yeah,
tax breaks that they give out in BC and Ontario and Quebec are simply not sustainable, right? For the kind of budgets that, because budgets for these films are dropping as well, right?
yes,
If you
yeah,
can make
yeah,
a film in India for $25 million, why would you spend 80 million in Canada, right? It just
mm, mm,
the economics of animated features are changing very fast, and I don't exactly know where it's headed, but um, I think Canada is gonna run into some issues over the next few years, and
yeah,
Ireland, I don't know. I mean, Ireland, like again, all they're all competing and saying we got the best tax breaks. The Tenerife,
yeah.
Spain, they have good tax breaks. UK has tax breaks. I mean, every country has them. It's just but how?
I
But
mean,
it's a race to where.
it's a race to the bottom when you start like competing on price, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a race to the bottom, and as well. Ireland's run into troubles with its tax breaks. So, we gave tax breaks to Apple, and they owe us something like 13 billion, or so. And the EU were like, "Get that money back, Ireland." And Ireland were like, "Well, we kind of prefer the company, the money, whatever." Um, So yeah, it's I don't know how it'll change and shift, but it's, with any capitalist system, once you start undercutting things, what'll happen, right? So there's, in my head, you still need to maintain equality in storytelling. The audience has to be interested. You need to make the money back, even though you're putting in less money, right? So if it's a race to the bottom in terms of cost, then you're also cutting talent, which reduces the um the value of what you're making. So it's like this really interesting balance that it's still not quite been struck here, because now we're back on cost, and eventually it'll kind of pivot back toward quality. That kind of, I think, how it usually seesaws in my brief experience of looking at this.
Yeah, it's I don't know, we can kind of everyone I think can see what's happening,
Yeah,
but we don't know where it's headed, right?
no,
And
impossible to predict. Yeah,
it's hard to say. Is there going to be even more pain ahead for the animation industry? Uh,
uh,
one of the funny things is that the animation industry continues to grow, but
yeah,
but the quality of life doesn't necessarily continue to grow for those who are in the industry. So,
yeah, yeah.
and
Japan is a great example of that.
you know,
And anime's exploded over the recent years. It really truly exploded. Like every Western studio wanted to get its claws into anime to some degree. You had these great initiatives like Star Wars Visions. That's a Disney looking outward, and they went for anime first, and then they went for more independent creators, which helped. It helps. It does, and there's benefits to every. Well, I always say there's strengths and weaknesses to everything. There's costs and benefits to everything as well. But like you said, there's storm clouds on the horizon, and the lightning is striking in certain areas, but we have no idea how that storm is going to get worse or take a break.
if anyone has any questions or wants to make any
Mm.
comments, we've been talking quite a bit, but
Yeah,
certainly if you have any questions or comments, let us know. We're probably
yeah.
gonna cut it. I think we're pretty much done complaining for this week, so we can
I,
say,
I was going to say, what are you looking forward to? Let's try and end on something nice. What's something you're
yeah.
looking forward to?
What am I looking forward to? I don't know. Maybe Annecy, right?
Annecy, yeah,
You're
yeah. I
that's
mean,
that's always
that's
something to look forward to around this time of
yeah.
year.
We
You
can
look
forget
forward
our
to it.
woes.
Yeah, you look forward to it more when you're in Montreal because that's where I was living before, and there it's cold, and you're like, oh, I can't wait to go to a lake. LA, the weather's nice though, so it's kind of like, the weather's not really a big improvement, but Annecy is always a fun time, and you're going
Yeah.
this year too, I think, right?
Yeah, I'm going, so I'll see you there.
Yeah.
Um, and I am looking forward to it, because it's kind of like a moment in time where everyone's together. Oh, there's a comment here from Ernesto. You should invite producers from all around the world to talk about this particular issues. Their insights could be really interesting. I totally agree. Because we're on the outside somewhat. At least I feel like I'm more on the outside looking in. And my voice is about to give up here, so I'm going to take a drink of water while you talk. I mean, please.
Oh, I switched the camera to you.
Oh, did you? Switch it to you there, so I can
Let's see if I can
I
switch
can
it
have
back.
it.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, there
Mm.
we go. No, that's a great idea. At the same time, how each country will survive this era. At the same time, we try to create and put something out there. Absolutely, yeah, yeah. I mean, uh,
100%, man. Yeah.
the situation is not the same in every country. That's one of the
Yeah.
great things I learned from traveling to so many different events all around the world is that the situations are slightly different. There's a lot of commonalities in what's happening in the industry, but there's also, there's a lot of places where there's even not even countries, even certain studios, like they're great to work for, right? They're
Yeah.
fantastic
100%.
experiences. So, production to production, it can change. So
Mm.
there's but best way to, I think, come to some sort of conclusion is kind of like you're saying, Ernesto, is to just talk to as many people as possible, to get as many
Yeah.
different perspectives as possible. And you know, you might not come to a single conclusion, but you can at least find out what best practices are, what are good
Mm,
approaches, what are bad approaches, and that's what we absolutely intend to do. I mean, that's what we try to do through the website. I think we uh, talk to a lot more people than most of these sites tend to do. We
mm,
really focus on trying to get perspectives from around the globe,
mm.
and that's what we hope to do here as well with this podcast.
Here's a great question that we've just popped in. The issues about outsourcing animation were addressed well here, but what's the solution? Is this all inevitable, or what can US workers do? Or can US workers do something to protect their future? That's a really interesting question. I think, I think, all you can really do is pull from history to kind of somewhat predict how things are going or what to do. And probably best to look at how other industries have survived, uh, companies pulling out and focusing on service, for the pipeline, right? For the pipeline, because that's what's happening here. DreamWorks are saying they're going to keep the in-house development and story creation in-house, whereas once it clicks into actual production, then that's all outsourced, right? Isn't that what they're saying?
I'm sorry. You repeat that one more time.
I'm basically saying that their development and their story creation they're doing in house, but once it clicks into full production, like the animation and everything like that, that's that's what's being outsourced, right?
Correct, and not all of it. They're only looking to
Mm,
outsource certain percentages of certain films, and some of them may be entirely outsourced. Some of them may be thirty
mm,
percent outsourced. I mean, you know, we don't know yet. Yeah, I mean, I'll
yeah.
say this. Um,
Mm.
I have a lot of lunches and a lot of
That
meetings.
congratulations.
I have a
Very
lot of
full.
lunches, a
Yeah.
lot of meetings with a lot of people, and who are in positions of power in this
Mm,
industry in LA. And
mhm,
I never talk about, you know, who it is, but I will say one of the things that I've drawn from a lot of the recent meetings that I've had is that a lot of big names are, they don't see a future working for the big studios, and
ah,
they're all looking independently, and they're looking at
mm,
things like that amazing digital circus. They're looking at the fact that, you know, Vivian Medrano was able to, and you interviewed her recently, was able to sell a series
mhm.
to Amazon by launching it on as her own, you know, self-funded YouTube. And these
Yes.
people that I'm talking to, they have money, right? They're
Mhm,
successful in this business. They don't have any, you know, issues with like funding a project, right? They can do
mhm,
it.
mhm.
They're kind of like, why haven't we done this before? But
Yeah.
now that they're not necessarily workers, right? They're more at another level. But
Mm,
you know, there's a lot of people who are looking to move independent, and
yeah.
I think, you know, it's not an entirely new concept, right? I mean, the New York animation industry has always been kind of hustle, freelance, do your own thing,
Mhm.
mix independent with work, with paying work, and do, you know, it's a culture that has existed for a long time, but it's been
Yeah.
very interesting for me to hear people in LA say the same thing, right? They're kind of like
Yeah.
going, wait, this is an option for us because these studios, you know, they don't treat us fairly. They junk our projects before they even air, right? They're taking, you know, they're not letting us make the projects the way we want them. You know, they're constantly, you know, shifting them to other
Mm,
places, or making choices that don't work for us as creators. And why are we still there? We don't even need them because now we have all these examples. They waited basically for all these successful examples of indie people to get it done. And now they're going, wait,
mm,
I can do that too. And
yeah.
what they have over a lot of indie people is that they have, you know, connections. You know, they have instant, you know, they can crew up really easily with friends that are in the business. So, you know, there's a lot of uh, opportunity there.
Mm. And I think that, there are two ideas that I've been playing around with, which is in the rest of the world, you have to remember that a lot of these gigs are contract gigs, right? So you're always chasing from one stage to the next stage. You're always looking for the next job, essentially, right? You're have this one contract, you could work with this independent studio, you've got this other contract, you could work with this bigger studio, whatever it is. And I think a lot of people work like that anyways. They understand that these things are contracted. But at a lower level, then, or not a lower level, at a different level, I think what's really critical to remember is the industry wouldn't exist without people making things, right? And whether that's independent, a lot of,
Hmm.
studios always have director development programs. They're always looking for new ideas, and how they find these things are running people through story development, or they look at festivals and short films and things like that. And really, I would say to anyone is, if you still want to, because a lot of people make animation because they love storytelling. They're not doing it for a career, right? They're not doing it for, well, they're doing it for a career in the long run, but they started because they love stories. And independent people who go out of their way to share a story, short, making it short is not easy, but saying something is really important. And that's why I think, when it comes to independent work, that really is the like fundamental basis of the industry, really at that level, right? People making shorts, people putting their work out there. um and these studios wouldn't really exist without that kind of stuff, as a nice thing
Absolutely.
to say
Yeah.
at the end. Don't give up, guys. Don't give up.
I mean, look, we're gonna be talking about all this stuff weekly from now on,
Yeah,
and hopefully a lot of other stuff as well. So,
yeah,
um,
not just the same three things. Yeah.
yeah. But no, these are great questions. It's kind of fun,
Hmm.
like doing it when there's not a whole lot of people here because there's not like a ton of comments. You could actually keep up. I see some of these like Twitch live streams with like 20,000 users, and there's like you can't even keep up with the comments, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't, I couldn't deal with that. But this is nice. This has been a nice pace. It's kind of been a nice
Mhm.
entry point into the streaming world.
Yeah.
But yeah, we really look forward to talking more with readers about stories that we're
Hmm.
publishing, you know, throughout the week, and then we wrap it up on Fridays, and we talk about what we published. So
Yeah.
so yeah. But thank you so much
So,
for joining us. I don't know if there's a sign off. That wait, what are you guys watching this week?
you
Okay.
were so about to go. Yeah, you were right at the end there. Yeah. What's my sign off? Well, this is what I watched
Right.
this week. Yeah.
Well,
Thank
wait,
you so much for the questions. I
we
appreciate it.
have
Yeah.
another one too.
Answer.
Nice one, guys. Definitely, I can't read what he's. Definitely keep doing
Keep
these.
doing these.
Okay, we will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sean.
And
Thank you.
Sean, I want to see your new film too. So, I've seen a little bit of it online, and I really want to see the new film. So, I hope we get to see that soon and
Yeah.
talk to you about that as well. I think it's going to be at
There you
Annecy
go.
actually. I think it got into Annecy. So,
We'll see you there, Sean. If
yeah.
you're when you're at Annecy, if not before, on the stream sometime. But thank you so much. Uh, I mean, what are you watching this week? That's one, two
I was
things. What's
I was
been
on
on
a
your head?
trip, so I wasn't watching much.
I'll tell you what I was watching
I'm
this
trying
week.
to
I
think.
was
Oh,
watching the.
I did see a very
Yeah, go on.
negative. I saw Quiet on the Set, which is that thing about the abusing the Nickelodeon live action stars,
Oh,
which is
I didn't see that. Yeah.
certainly not something that is worth talking about. So, what about you?
I was watching the FX series, the Shogun. The kind of remake of that show. It's based on a book, but I
Okay.
know some of my friends worked the visual effects on it, so I wanted to check it out and see it. So I'm usually very busy, so I haven't had the chance to really dig my teeth into something else. Um, but I'll be prepared for that question next week.
Yeah. Yeah. See,
Yeah.
that's the streaming world. I didn't even know that existed. That's I have no idea what you're talking about, but
Shogun.
that's
It's on Disney Plus here for us.
yeah,
It's pretty big, but it's a live action show, right? It's not an animated one.
yeah.
That's why. What else? Maybe some jazz music on the background will help make the sad news better.
Okay, that's your department, Cole. You're the.
Excuse me, you said you'd pick the music. Don't put
Okay.
that in my bed. Um, DIY Animation Club. Okay, wow, Dave Merson has same trailer, looks incredible. Sean, you're getting all this love. I
Okay.
can't wait to see your stuff.
See you
Yeah.
there. Okay. Very cool. Okay, we're gonna end it before more people comment. but next week we hope to have a lot more conversation with people on the chat.
Yes.
So I love
Yeah.
doing that. That helps break up the falling into your own trap of just talking about what you want to talk about, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But Cole,
Great.
I hope you have a great weekend. It's supposed to be rainy here in LA, so so that's not a usual LA weekend, but I assume Ireland, there's a
It's raining right now, my friend.
so you're used to it.
So, yeah. But anyways, happy Easter, everyone. If anyone celebrates that, because we do here. And thank you so much. Have a
Yep.
good weekend.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye bye.